men have been and still are being depicted in a very harmful and negative way, no matter the kind of video entertainment that you could be watching, including family-friendly cartoons and movies, to real-life shows and movies. The problem does seem quite harmless and silly at the start, so please do watch this video until the end to understand the extent of this problem. This problem is yet another factor that is causing the massive ongoing masculinity crisis and the rise of weak and feminine men. So what exactly is this problem? Men keep getting depicted as useless and or stupid, while women are shown to be the strong, smart and independent ones. Yes, this sounds silly and it wouldn't be a problem at all if this kind of relationship dynamic was only shown in video entertainment for adults. And it's not a problem with adults because they already have some sort of ideology that they already follow. The problem is when young impressionable children watch this kind of relationship dynamic, while their brains are still highly plastic and absorb all the information that they can, which makes them accept and understand that the useless and stupid man and the independent and smart woman relationship dynamic is normal. I did know this to be a fact already, but I watched quite a few movies with my girlfriend over Christmas and I've witnessed this problem firsthand. The first example is from a trilogy of movies called Open Season. They were movies from my childhood, so we decided to rewatch them. And the basic idea of the movie is that there are animals in the woods and they're just doing stuff. And what I'm about to describe happened in all of the movies, but the specific examples are from the third one. And so the main plot in this movie is that the main bear swaps lives with another bear who looks identical. And when that happens, everyone is suspicious except his best friend, who is an idiot deer. And the idiot deer has a wife and children. And it so happens that at one point in the movie, the wife leaves to go see her parents. And as she leaves, she says the usual stuff of make sure you look after the kids, this and that. And he has a son that looks exactly like him and two daughters that look exactly like his wife. And I'm sure you can understand where this is kind of going to go. And pretty soon after, he starts talking about doing fun dad stuff. And of course the fun dad stuff is him being an idiot and doing dangerous stuff. And of course when the fun dad stuff is going on, him and his only son have a blast of a time, while his two daughters sit back and watch because they're so much better than that. And then at one point he says something about jumping into bushes for fun. But that exact bush that he jumps into turns out to be poisonous. So then he goes and jumps into it. And who else joins him? Only his idiot son, who also doesn't know any better. But of course both the daughters didn't jump in because they knew better, were smarter and weren't idiots. And so sometime after, the wife deer eventually comes back. Everyone is glad to see her. And when she comes back, she immediately notices that the bear isn't actually him. And the idiot deer never noticed, even though it's his best friend. And at one point the idiot deer is stuck and not knowing what to do. Then his children come over to him and give him advice. More specifically actually, his idiot son stands and does nothing while the daughters come over and actually give him advice. And at the very end of the movie, the idiot deer and the wife finally get married. And all of the guys in the movie go on a guy trip. And the women stay and have the equivalent of a male stripper dance for them, in the form of the buff deer in the movie.
Arrest me, officer!
In the movie that is for children as young as 4, which literally implies that it's okay for the women to get a male stripper when the guys are away, which literally sounds like every single story about a woman cheating. The husband is away and the woman starts seeing someone innocently, but the woman has fun and starts seeing the other man more and more. She starts to catch feelings and then she eventually breaks up with her husband, because the other man is able to fulfill her more. So boiled down, this is how I understood the movie. The father is stupid and incompetent. This is why he needs to be told to look after his children, and didn't realise that his best friend wasn't actually who he is. His son is following his stupid and incompetent footsteps, making mistakes and being as dopey as his father. The daughters are smart and independent like their mother, as they know more than their own father to be able to spot out a poisonous bush by just looking at it, and to give advice to him when he is struggling, and are disinterested to play in the silly games that the males partake in. The wife is also strong, smart, competent and independent, which is why everyone is glad when she comes back, including her idiot husband who bombards her with love when she comes back, implying that the woman deserves love because she is so needed and important, while she never gives him any sort of love in the entire trilogy. Which is another dynamic that you've probably seen very often, where there's the very lovey and clingy man, and the disinterested and a bit cold woman. And the second example is a movie called Brave, where the whole idea of the movie is about an up-and-coming princess, who doesn't want to comply to what it means to be a princess, and wants to do completely different things instead. And doesn't that sound how modern women don't want to comply to what it means to be a woman, and want to comply to completely different things instead? Which is firstly a bad message to send to young girls in the first place, because most of them would be most happy if they grow up and be a feminine woman, and submit to a masculine and dominant man. So not only is the whole idea for the movie quite wrong, but I also noticed the relationship dynamic between the main character's mother and father, who are king and queen. There are a few times where the king is laughing or joking at something, and the queen has to nudge him to set him in line and correct his behaviour, as if the king of a kingdom shouldn't already have self-control. And then there's a scene where there's a brawl amongst everyone, The king is enjoying it and laughing, and he turns to the queen to laugh at it with her, but she is unreactive and kind of gives him that kind of look to make him intervene, making the king seem immature and the queen smart and grounded. And then it takes him to shout at the top of his lungs for everyone to stop. It does stop, but then starts up for a second time, and this time the king gets involved in it. So the queen walks into the middle of the brawl to get the 4 kings, including her husband, and as she's walking, everybody moves out of the way for her, which again shows her superiority by making her seem strong and powerful, and again making the strongest men, the kings, seem like idiots. And so when this movie is boiled down, this is how I understand it. There is a young woman who doesn't want to comply to the traditional standards of what she should be like, all because she doesn't want to and instead wants to do what she wants. Very much so like the modern women of today don't want to comply to the traditional standards of what they should be like, because they just don't want to and want to do whatever they want instead. The king is a traditionally masculine man, but he seems to be somewhat stupid and immature, requiring his wife to keep him in line, which makes her more powerful than him. And the queen is also a traditionally feminine woman, but she is completely independent and doesn't need the king to do anything for her. The last example is from another trilogy of movies called How to Train Your Dragon, and what I'm going to describe happened across the span of the 3 movies. And what that is that the main character is growing up and turning out nothing like his father. His father is fearless, strong and stoic, whereas he is weak, scared and incompetent. And by the 3rd movie, the main character is around 20 years old, which is also when his father dies. Yet he remains to be a weak and feminine man, with the only benefit being that he gained competence. He then became the chief of his village, displaying little to no masculinity, and in addition to that, the dynamic between him and his girlfriend is one where she is the tough and masculine one, and he is the passive and feminine one. Not only was the main character feminine, but his dragon was also showing signs of femininity, as his dragon became the alpha dragon as they call it, since he overpowered a dragon that is 100 times bigger than him to do so. However, once he sees a female dragon of the same species, his competence goes out the window, and he makes a fool out of himself trying to impress the female dragon. And a chunk of that movie is literally the male alpha dragon chasing the female dragon, who is then distracted when he isn't with her. But eventually they do get together and become king and queen of the dragon world. And there is one part of the movie where the female dragon gets captured and is used as bait to capture the male alpha dragon as well, which I find is quite a funny metaphor because it shows that you will get into bad situations trying to chase women. And so how I understand this movie when it's boiled down is that you don't need to be masculine to become a leader and be respected, and that you need to chase a woman relentlessly to get her, and without her you're missing a piece of yourself. Which the last bit is true, but the extent to which the movie hammered it in was a bit too much, because it keeps feeding into the narrative that the women are the prize and that the men should chase. So it isn't as bad with the modernity and femininity as the other movies, but there are still big traces of it. So I hope that you can see now how children's movies display a strong lack of masculinity within men, while having an abundance of masculinity within women, having an abundance of femininity in men, while having a lack of femininity within women, which is exactly the narrative that is being pushed onto modern men and women. And I hope that there are people watching this thinking that I'm out of my mind to analyse children's movies in such detail. And the reason I've done that in the first place is because you need to analyse the message that someone is sending you and what their intent may be. And doesn't it make sense, with the rise of feminism and modernism, while drifting away from traditionalism, that there is some secrecy going on, where the messages that are being sent are made to push young impressionable children onto feminism and modernism? Because the 3 movies that I mentioned all end with the women feeling inspired and strong, when it definitely doesn't for the men. Because if they wanted to inspire men, they would have strong, competent and masculine men in movies. But they don't. They only have strong, smart and independent women who live amongst stupid men. And all of those relationship dynamics and subliminal messages wouldn't be as much of a problem, and wouldn't have as big of an effect if they were on movies that were rated 15 years plus. Because the teenagers who would be watching it would already have some sort of ideology already instilled with them. And so it means that it would be much harder for them to be programmed by watching movies. But for movies that are able to be watched by children who are as young as 4, they have a lot of potential to program the children into whatever subliminal messaging the movie has, no matter how small you think it is. I know that I was personally affected by this type of messaging when I was growing up, as my method to try to make girls like me from when I was age 4 all the way up until I got with my current girlfriend at age 19 was to be silly and make them laugh. And although that did work for me, I know that I would have been much more effective if I focused my energy on attracting them by being charismatic, interesting and masculine. I really cringe at all of those failed attempts at being silly to attract girls, but I really can't beat myself up too much because I literally didn't know what else to do. And although that did happen to me, that very well might have happened to you too. As when we were young, we would just go wherever the wind takes us and do whatever we feel like. watch movies, play video games, go outside, whatever. And some of those things, like watching movies, subconsciously programmed us into believing certain things. As I also thought that I should pedestalize women and make them my entire world, which fortunately didn't have an extremely bad effect on me, besides making me unfulfilled and having to keep searching for what actually resonates with me. So no matter where you are on your journey, you can always learn more and become a better version of yourself. I don't normally suggest my other videos, but if you watch this far, I'm sure you will want to benefit more. So I will put up my video on screen on how to transition into masculinity, and also my video on why feminism is selfish and why traditionalism is correct. And these two videos should give you a base layer of understanding on masculinity within yourself and how it should be within a relationship dynamic. So go on out there and take care of your loved ones. Make the world a little better every single day and become the absolute best version of yourself. I believe in you, brother.